So we were speaking about public speaking, and I wanted to test you because public speaking, it teaches you to give an answer without preparing too much, right?
Mm.
So I will give you short sentences or words,
Oh my gosh.
and just what you think, what comes to mind, you can just tell us. And don't worry if there is a question or something you don't want. We just go to the next one and I will edit it out. So
sounds good.
Fluent in 3 months. What does comes to mind? Fluent in 3 months.
Efficient.
For example, efficient. Okay. Once you learn one language, it becomes really easy to learn another language.
It's true.
The intermediate plateau does exist in a language learning journey.
I do agree with that, yes.
Language learning is a lifelong pursuit.
Yes, it's a continuous work in progress.
Will foreign language learning become obsolete one day?
Never.
Why?
Why? Because I think we live in such a globalized world, and there are so many different ethnicity. There are so many kids that are like mixed. That come from different backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, and I think we will just have more and more people speaking foreign languages. So it won't be just everyone speaking English. We will have more and more people speaking multiple languages, and this will never die. It will just keep evolving. It will just continue growing, I would say.
Okay, that is so beautiful. I like it. So, and what do you think, Urmi, will language learning look like, let's say, in 10 years?
Okay, I think it will just be more and more accessible to people because, and I think I've seen that in the past 10 years, but I think it will keep being like that. I think it will be a bit more accessible and it will become more flexible because I think now, especially with what happened with the pandemic, we just have many online platforms like italki, Reply. We have so many of them, like Just Learn, and basically it just gives access to anyone to learn a language. Literally, like, people get connected from different parts of the world. You have people from China, you have people from South America connecting with the native speakers just to learn a language. And I would say it's also going to be a bit more flexible in the sense that you can learn language anytime during the day from the comfort of your home. So you don't need to go to an actual classroom anymore. I mean, you could still do it, but now you can also learn a language from the comfort of your home without really just going out, just the comfort of your pajama, basically. So it will be more accessible and more flexible, I would say, and easier too.
And maybe with virtual reality classes.
Exactly, which we already do have. We have so many virtual classes.
Yeah. And you mentioned italki before. Are you also an italki teacher?
I am. So I'm a community teacher in italki, and I provide English and Italian sessions.
What would you say, like, if you have to give a sales pitch or something like that? So why should students take lessons with you?
So they should take lessons with me because I'm a polyglot. So I do speak more than one language. So I could definitely share with them tips on how to language depending on their levels. And I can teach them the more, I would say, authentic and spontaneous way of learning a language, because sometimes an actual class, it's cool. They don't teach you about this slang. Like, they don't teach you the slang or the actual way of speaking. They don't teach you about expression. They just teach you like grammar, how to formulate a sentence and things like that. But with me, you will learn more the authentic way of speaking a language.
So it's really like a conversation, or the focus lies on speaking.
Yes,
together.
With me it's more conversation, exactly.
And how about the topics? Can the students choose the topics, or how is it like?
Yeah, they can, but usually I choose the topics. So for instance, today I had a lesson with a student and we spoke about mindfulness. With another student, we spoke about confidence. So I usually talk choose the topics, and I usually ask a very insightful question because I want them to think, and I want them to be able to also be able to speak on any topic. So I basically challenge you to be ready in any topics.
Okay, yeah, that sounds really interesting. Yeah. And as a matter of fact, as I told you, I am having my first Italian class. Well, it's not my very first Italian class, but I am continuing my Italian journey, and actually I planned to just speak with the teacher. So what would you recommend me to focus on as being someone who already has learned a lot of vocabulary but never has spoken the language? So is it a good idea now to take a lesson and just to speak?
Definitely. I think if you have the basic, if you have the if you know the vocabulary, I think the next step is to really be able to speak. Because I think when it comes to reading or writing, it's pretty, I want to say it's easier compared to speaking, because you do take the time to read. You do take the time to, you know, when you're writing, you do take the time to fix the sentences. You do have the time also to think. But when you're speaking, sometimes it might be a little bit more challenging because you have to take an extra time to think. And I think the only way to be able to speak fluently and eloquently is just to practice, basically. And I think you don't necessarily just have to take italki lessons or lessons with an actual native speaker, but you can also speak, but also in your local place, you know, like if you have a friend who knows the language, you can practice with them. If you go to an actual restaurant where they speak only Italian or only English, you can order in that particular language. So you're practicing also in real life, and you're making a habit out of it. So let's say also another thing is, let's say you're someone who shops around a lot. Instead of speaking your native language, you can speak the other language if they speak, let's say, Italian, for instance. So let's say you're going, for instance, to Italy, and you want to practice your Italian. Then instead of speaking in English, you can just order, or you can just ask questions in Italian. So that could be another way to practice. And I definitely think that conversation, being able to speak, is probably the most challenging thing when it comes to learning a language, because we understand when someone speaks, but when it comes to us to speak, we tend to be we tend to hold back, and I think we are also afraid of making mistakes, but practice just makes it so much easier.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for these tips. And if I am not mistaken, you had been learning German for 3 years, I think, but I'm not quite sure.
I did learn it when I was in high school. I did 3 years of German classes. I want to say knew how to speak it, but since I stopped practicing German, I lost it. I honestly don't remember anything about it. It was. I do remember it was very different from learning English or French, because it has its own rules, and it's a lot about memorization, but I honestly lost it, and that's because I didn't practice it, so it was basically my own fault.
And will you ever restart the German language learning journey?
No. And I won't.
What other languages are you working on in the future?
Spanish. Spanish is the one that I'm working on, and I think because I know Italian, it really helps. And I do a lot of things on my own when it comes to Spanish. Like I listen to Spanish podcasts to practice my Spanish. And I do have like short stories in Spanish. Like it's a little book that I bought on Amazon. I try to like practice my reading. It usually comes with like with the translation and with keywords, so it really helps. And when I travel in like Latin American countries, I actually tend to speak Spanish. So I went to Mexico, and I remember like I did understand everything they were telling me, and I made an effort to actually speak it. And when I didn't know the word, I would just say it in English or in Italian, and then still get it. So
nice. I can recommend a podcast. It's Espanol con Juan.
Okay.
So it's a teacher called Juan, and I like it because it's very conversational. He talks to you like to a friend, and in a very informal way. That's why I really love it.
Okay, I'll check it out.
Do you have a recommendation for us to learn Spanish?
Yes.
I mean, a podcast?
Yeah, it's called the How to Spanish podcast. Yeah, that's How to Spanish, if I'm not mistaken. And it's basically about these two hosts that are located in Mexico. And basically, they have their own courses. They also have like a YouTube channel. They have their own podcast. And every week, they release like an episode. So usually these episodes are pretty much about different topics. And they do focus a lot on the Mexican culture. And they compare it to other cultures. And they talk about things like how to give directions in let's say in Spanish, or they focus on other things more related to the Mexican culture. So not only you're like practicing your Spanish, but you're also learning a little bit about their culture. And sometimes they have guests as well, and they interview the guests in Spanish. They ask them things like, "Oh, what was your journey with learning Spanish?" and stuff like that. Or they also invite people that are located elsewhere who are learning Spanish. So it's pretty good because it's very conversational, and they also speak, like their Spanish is not too fast. So you do understand it. So if you do have a basic knowledge, you understand them, and I really, really like them.
Okay, thank you for this tip. I will check it out later. So Urmi, what I like is, I like to ask my guests if they have a favorite expression, and then sometimes I do cover it on my other podcast called The Vocab Man, and then I integrate it in the other show and explain it to the listeners. So maybe you have a favorite expression that you could talk about, and you could also say why you like it and all the story behind it.
Yes, so there is this expression that I listened to a podcast which says, eat an elephant one bite at a time, or something along this line. I don't know if you ever heard it.
No, I haven't.
So now you learned something new. So basically, this one, it's about, so basically, elephants are big, right? You cannot eat them in one shot. And the expression says eat an elephant one bite at a time is because what it's trying to say is that when you are tackling a big task, the job is to basically break it down into smaller parts. So this way you can tackle this challenging project or something like that. And I really liked it because, first of all, I love elephants. I think these are beautiful animals. And when I listened to this expression, I just felt like it's so relatable, because often when we have a goal, we just want to like get to the end point, but we don't think about the steps that we have to do in order to get to that destination. So it's always important to break everything into like smaller parts and tackle the smaller parts until we reach our destination. So yeah.
That is lovely. Yeah, it's like, if someone wants to become fluent in only 3 months, it's maybe too much. We should take it in smaller bites, and then it gets better that way. And can you remember on which podcast you listened to it? Can you remember? Maybe.
I don't remember. Like, you're talking to someone who listens constantly to podcasts. Okay, I don't remember, but it wasn't a language podcast, that's for sure.
Yes, but this is a good word, a good cue word, that you're listening to a lot of podcasts, because maybe you could tell us how we can use podcasts to learn languages. Maybe you have some tricks, maybe a good app or a method, or do you just listen to it without thinking about it?
Yeah, I think when it comes to podcasts, I think it's very important to find something of your interest. And not necessarily as well. I think if you also want to like educate yourself, you can subscribe to podcasts that are not related to your field of interest, but something that you're interested in learning about. And usually when it comes to like listening to podcasts, I have this habit of listening to podcasts when I'm, say, when I'm like playing my home or cooking, or when I'm going, let's say, for a walk. So instead of listening to music, I listen to a podcast show. Or when I'm, let's say, going to work and I'm in the metro, I tend to listen to podcast shows. I try to like include them during my day as much as I can, because that's a passive way of learning where you don't have to sit down in front of a computer, or you don't have to go to a classroom to actually learn. It's a passive way of learning, and you practice your listening skills as well. And I think it's a great way to learn a language as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Urmi. And maybe you want to tell us where we can find you online.
Yes, so I do have a YouTube channel. It's called Urmi Hossain. I also have my own blog. It's called myways.ca, and people can also connect with me on LinkedIn, and it's called Urmi Hossain.
Okay, thank you so much. And it was really a lovely conversation with you. I was having a blast, and I want to thank you very much, Urmi.
Thank you.